Welcome back to the Forgotten ECE with Miss Jamie. I'm so excited that you're in and tuning in and listening. And I'm super excited to tell you about today's episode. In this episode, titled Beyond the Bell, the Hidden Impact of Afterschool Professionals, we're turning the spotlight on the crucial yet often overlooked role of before and after school programs. If you're not new here today, you definitely understand that we talk a lot about the Forgotten ECE in the sense of before and after school educators and school age educators, and today is no different. Our guest star today is Erica Saccoccio from the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. Welcome, Erica.
Hi, guys. Hi, I'm so happy to be here for so many reasons. One, with one of my favorite podcasters, Miss Jamie, and two, talking about one of my favorite topics.
Oh, I'm so great you're here. When we first met and you said that you started in before and after school programming, I was so excited. Together, we're going to explore the significant impact these programs and their dedicated professionals have on children, despite frequently being overshadowed in discussions about quality education and care. We'll dive into the challenges they face, including issues with funding, recognition, and quality rating systems, and discuss how we can advocate for more equitable support and opportunities for this vital sector. Erica, again, I'm so happy to have you here. Could you start by describing the typical structure and objectives of before and after school programs?
I would say, well, all programs are a little bit different, but for us, the structure really focuses on academic supports, and in addition to that, social and emotional supports. I think that it's a nice balance of the two, right? Because it's great to have academic supports, and being a good student is important. But being a good person who's well-adjusted is equally important. And I would say, not to sound cliche, but more now than ever, because, we're still dealing with impacts of just the changing world that has happened in the last, 5 or 6 years. I have to say, too, I think that some of us who have been in the field a long time have noticed a difference in the children, have noticed a difference in the parents. And so we have to kind of adapt to that, too, and decide on what is best for our programs and how do we navigate that, and sometimes it's new additional trainings that you might have to take. Maybe it's, relooking at your program to see, is the program you're running now meeting the needs of families?
Absolutely. I love how you said that. And you're so right. There has to be that balance between academic help and also emotional support. There's so much asked of them nowadays in school. Like looking at the kids' homework and stuff from even grade 3, from when I was in grade 3, I know times have changed, but they're learning so much more and more intense things in those grades, and they need that downtime and they need that time to be themselves, for sure.
Yeah, I think too, children are, and I'm always very positive, but I think there are things that we need to consider when we're looking at the students that we're serving now as opposed to 10 years ago, right? So children are dealing with social media. They're worried about what people are saying about them and all of those influences that come in. Before, when you had a bully at school, it was usually just that small network of people who knew about that. Now it's like everyone knows, right? So children are dealing with that. You also weren't worried about going to school and having harm done to you from either somebody who breaks into your school or a classmate. So they have these additional stressors that we didn't have 10 years ago. And even if the kids aren't articulating it, it's a real stressor that they are surrounded with every day. They see it every day on media, on the TV, on the radio, or the parents are talking about it. There's just a lot of changes for them that create this additional supports that are needed.
You're so right. There's things that happen now that I would have never even imagined happening when I was in school. And kind of going off of that, like, what do you think is the best way to address these concerns within your program?
I think a team approach is always good. Sitting down, kind of talk about what you're seeing. I would say meeting with parents as well and getting some of their ideas and feedback and then coming up with a plan. And because when you work with school age kids, the nice thing is they are so vocal. And so, involve them in the conversation. I think, if everybody talks about it and then says, okay, here's going to be our plan. And then also not even just having a safety plan, but also what are the rules in your center? Maybe it's no technology. Maybe it's no bullying. Maybe it's a combination. But you have to have the conversation. You can't just ignore it as though it doesn't exist. right? And then also building off the positives too, right? Not just focusing on those negatives, but what are the positive things? What are the positive things that we can learn? And how can we use social media in a positive way, right? So, like, you're a podcaster, right? Maybe it looks like you guys create a show, a podcast show, run by kids talking about great things that are going on in the community, right? So focusing on the positive, I think, also gives kids a chance to connect, feel good about themselves, because it's really easy to get sucked into this world of fake social and not feeling good enough, pretty enough, smart enough, or all the comparisons that we make, right? And we do it as adults, never mind a 10-year-old child who's just starting puberty, right? And they're comparing themselves to all these folks that idolize, right? So I think that we could use these things in a positive way and have the conversations about it.
You're absolutely right. I agree 100%, especially because the technology is not going anywhere. The media is not going anywhere. So being able to so-and-so arm, quote unquote arm, or teach children the benefits of it and how they can use it in a positive way, that's a great idea. Kind of on the same line of challenges, what are some of the key challenges that after-school professionals face in terms of funding and resources when compared to the traditional educators?
Oh, okay. So let me start with an example. So in our state, we had, and I'm for those of you who don't know me, I'm from Rhode Island, which is the smallest state in the U.S. So when they opened up the quality rating systems in our state, before it was implemented, they had all these focus groups. And I can remember being in a room with, I don't know, probably 200 educators at all different levels. And we were putting together the framework. And of the 200 professionals, I think there was 3 of us that represented school age. 3. And I'm not even sure that we were invited to the table. We might have stronghold ourselves to the table. We might have said, hey, where's our invite? To be honest. And the other 2 that were at the table were really big organizations. It was like a YMCA and a Boys and Girls Club, and then me, like this little small private program. But a lot of times we don't get invited to the conversation. So that's number 1. You have to advocate for yourself. You can't just always wait for that invitation. The other thing is, if you look at here in the U.S., like NACE, like what is early childhood education? What is the ages? Right? It doesn't stop at 5. And my biggest screaming from the rooftop is quality education doesn't stop at 5. Kids don't now not need a good teacher and not need good environments. Of course they do, right? So I feel like some of the struggles would be not being invited to the table. When the quality rating system was put in place and money was tied to it, we were not allowed to get that money. So if you ran a sole school age program, you were not able to access those funds because the funds came from the federal government and it was earmarked for early childhood education, which they said ended when children went to kindergarten. So obviously that's not true, right? We know that early childhood education goes up to at least the age of 8. So why are we not supporting educators all the way around? So you and I and all of those listening know that this is already a problem. What I'm going to say to you, though, I want to ask you to be reflective for a minute. Are you, and I don't know if in Canada you probably don't have NACE there, but you may have some type of agency like that. Who is your leading body in your country for early childhood education? And are you a member of that group? And are you an active member of that group? Because it's one thing to buy the t-shirt, get the card, and do nothing, right? So you have to be part of that conversation because, as they say, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. You got to write the letters. You got to talk to your community. You know what? You don't even have to wait for anybody. Just exactly what you're doing right now, Jamie. You created a podcast to say, these are the issues that we're facing. You're very much an advocate, right? But we need everybody to do that. And the more of us that stand up, the more that will get some action to take place. And that's what happens with these larger groups, whether it's public school teachers, because they have a union that fights for them really hard, or early childhood education in the sense of infant to 5-year-olds. They have here in the U.S. NACE, which, and many other organizations, but really fight for early childhood education. We fall through the cracks. So, we have to fill those cracks, and you got to get involved. I joined the group of NACE and my Rhode Island affiliate, and I am a active board member. Like I'm on the board because I needed to make sure that we had a voice in my state. But I'm just one girl. So if we all just said, hey, I'm going to take this state or this section or sector, I know you guys break up your places a little bit differently. Yeah, if everybody says, I'm going to do it, because if not you, who's going to do it? Stop complaining if you don't take action.
You are speaking my language. You just got me so excited, but absolutely. There's so many people, especially right now. So we actually have the College of ECEs, which we have to pay into in Ontario. It's like a regulating body. So really, they're not really for educators. They're for people to see early child education as professionals. But everyone complains about how much they cost and how much we have to pay into that and what they're actually doing for educators, even though the whole part of it is to show our profession as professional. And I'm not saying I'm not saying whether I agree with it or not. What I'm saying is that people complain and everyone goes on social media and they talk about how awful it is. But when it comes down to reaching out to this college or comes down to reaching out to the government, no one wants to do anything about it. And that's what's frustrating. And it goes right down to before and after school programs. For years, I was an educator in before and after school programs, and I'd go to these professional developments and they talk about infants in preschool and preschool or toddlers, and never, ever, ever touch on before and after school. And I would ask, I'd be like, okay, how is this relevant to before and after school? And, and I'm like, this is pathetic. Like, we need people that are experts in this field for professional development. And overall, we need people advocating for it. But people have to do that. They have to get up and advocate for it.
So let's get real specific, Jamie. For those of you listening, you're the people we're talking about.
Yes.
We need you. So maybe, Jamie, it isn't they don't want to, because obviously they're jazzed up if they're writing about it on social media. Maybe you do an episode on how to advocate. What are the steps? Point. Where are the places that we can go, right? And I will too.
Yes,
so I'll
that's a great idea.
cover U.S. You can cover Canada.
Deal.
Let's talk about it, right? Let's see how we can help people understand, because it can seem overwhelming, right? You and I, we're very extrovert. We have big personalities and voices, and we just don't care. We're going to say what we want to say. But not everybody has that personality. So that's okay. You can craft a letter, and you don't even have to worry about it being perfect, because now there's this thing called chat. Right? There's Grammarly. There's all these things that can help you. You put your ideas in, you put your concerns in, you put your suggestions in, and not only just complain. That's the other thing. People like to complain. Come to the table with some solutions. That is the worst, when you're like, oh, this isn't right. That isn't. Come to the table with some solutions. Now, they may not take everybody's solutions, but I promise they're going to take some. Right? Because we're not going to move forward if we don't take some action. So sorry, we're off on a tangent here, but
I know we'll wrap it back.
Yeah, we'll wrap it back up. I'm sorry, but I just really love school age, and I would love to see the programs continue to thrive. That's all.
But it's people like you that this passion that is igniting in you as we talk. Like, this is exactly why I do what I do. It's like this. There are people like this that, like us, in before and after school education, they just don't know how to make it work because of some of the pushbacks. But that's why I asked you here today, so that we can talk about some of the pushbacks, but also just advocate for before and after school education. Oh, I love you. All right, bringing it back a little bit, how are after-school professionals currently represented in national discussions about education and childcare? And could you provide some examples where they have been overlooked and undervalued?
Well, I just think they're just not part of the conversation. Here we have, in the U.S., we have we have like three, but we have the National After-School Association.
Oh.
Yeah, so if you don't know who they are, go on their website, because they have lots of resources that can go across, countries. So they do represent us in a great way at other places that matter, and they do have a pretty good membership. So I think, many of the other age groups that are serviced, they have lots of groups that represent them. We may have one or two. So again, it just kind of goes back to, not being part of the conversation, or it's funny, because I feel like, because I've had the opportunity to work in two of the three, but if you're a teacher in a public school, you're considered you're a teacher.
Yes.
If you work in early childhood education, some people are starting to get, you're an early educator. You're an early childhood educator. After school, we're still like, oh, you're the people who watch your kids after school. You know, when they run
Yes.
around in the play yard. Oh, or you know, you help. You're the homework helper, right? And we do so much more than that. So I hate to keep saying, but it really takes us to showcase what we do. So maybe it's, you know, maybe it's just that. We all have social media. Social media is very powerful. Show what you're doing in your programs. Show what, you know, I don't know what qualifications you all have to have there to work an after school program. But if you do have folks that are completing degrees or have degrees, showcase that, you know, on your platforms and say, you know, congratulations, like this teacher who runs our program has our master's degree in youth development, you know. So I think it takes us to shine a spotlight on it.
I agree completely. One of the things we do here at the Childcare Center that I run is for all our programs. When you walk into our front hall, we have this like a bookshelf type thing. And it has a picture of the educator and it has their diploma from whatever diploma they have to show, because I want the families coming into our center to know that these are professionals. Everyone that works here at my center is a professional. They're an educator.
Yeah. So Jamie, and that's awesome. But how do people outside of your program?
Well, exactly. Yeah.
Right. So that is one step for sure when you're doing the tours and say, like, this is what we do. Like, this is serious business for us. But, you know, how about a picture in the local paper of all of your staff, right? So that's what I mean. Like, just making that bigger impact. And Jamie, you're such a great leader. I think if everybody just thought about their leadership style, because there's lots of different leadership styles, right? Ours is similar, but there's other leadership styles. Think about what your leadership style. When I say leadership style, again, I'm not talking about a title. I'm not, I can be talking to the school van bus driver, right? Because you're the face of my program when you go to the schools and pick up the children, right? You're the face of my school, my company, my brand, right? So you're probably more impactful than the person who's in the building, because nobody sees them except for the people who come to that school, right? But everybody sees you in the community. So, you know, what can you do? Just think about what can you do at every level in your program, and how can we work together to help amplify the message?
Yes, that's a great point. And I agree. Like, it doesn't matter, what your role is within the center or within the school. You are a leader. You have the ability to be a leader. You had talked a little about earlier the rating qualities in the States. Do you want to touch on like after school programs and how they differ or how they're used for traditional educational settings?
Sure. So here in our state, and every state is different, here in our state, it's the same agency that gives you your Bright Stars rating, but we just use a different book. It's called the CCRI. I don't know if you guys use it because that is a global tool. The CCRI rating scale. So we use that, which is a little bit different than Eckers and Itters. So yes. Okay. Yeah. So yes. We use that in our state, and we use that to assess quality. Also, I think too, and I don't think NAA is doing it anymore, but they used to do after school accreditation. And that was such a great process. I loved it. We did it with our team probably about, I'm dating myself, 17 years ago, 18 years ago.
Yeah.
We were the first in our state to earn that credential for our program.
Wow.
But it was the process of it was amazing. It wasn't really about getting that certificate to hang on the wall at the end of the day. It was the work that we had put in as a group that just said, look, like we really not only reach the standards, but in some cases, you set the standard. And for us, we were setting the standard saying, hey, in our state, after school matters. And this is what a high quality program looks like. And not for ego, it was to set the example and say to everyone else who ran an after school program, like, let's do this. Like, let's showcase and show people that this is what we do. This is our passion, our livelihood. I mean, I worked in after school all day long, like I did before school, midday kindergarten, after school. It wasn't like I worked there for 2 hours, because that's the other misconception. Oh, it's 3 to 5. It's beyond the bell. Yeah, it's beyond the bell, but it takes a whole lot of preparation before that bell rings, right? So, yeah, there's that.
Yes, and that preparation goes into how amazing the programs end up being for the children. Can you talk about the impact on children and how before and after school programs contribute to children's development and well-being?
I can. So Let's start first with the friendships. The friendships that children make in before and after school programs last a lifetime, in my experience. I have also seen kids who, yesterday, here's a perfect example. Yesterday, my daughter wasn't feeling well. We went to the emergency room. She was okay. But we saw a former student there. And I said to the mom, I said, how's Jeff? She said, he's great. I said, is he still doing music? He loved music. She said, yeah, he moved to Atlanta. He is with his friend that he met. And they're producing music like in a real sense. Like to a point where he moved from one state to Atlanta because that's where like music happened. But that interest and that love for music really was cultivated at our after school program. Mm-hmm. He is now a producer 10 years later. So those are the impacts. We really were into music and art at our program, and every program has their special ooh la la, if you will, what they bring to the table. Yeah. And a lot of that comes from the staff and the things that they like and they're excited about and that they have the skill set to teach. So everybody's looks a little bit different. Also, your philosophy looks a little different. Who you service looks a little different. So at our school, just happened to be that. I also had these 7 girls who liked to dance after school. And so we had this like little gym and they started to dance there. And then they would tell their friends, and they were kind of older. They were like middle school. And some kids were like at their school, like, why do you go to a daycare? Like, that's weird. You're old. And they're like, no, you're weird. So they started dancing at the after school program and we gave them this space. After their friends learned that they were dancing and that they really loved it, and then they started doing competitions, we ended up with 90, I'm going to say again, 90 students who enrolled in our dance program. We had to get an entirely different building.
Oh my gosh.
4 years we ran a dance studio.
What?
So that is the impact that you can have as an after school person.
That gave me goosebumps. Like, it's just, you foster this love of things that that children might not have the opportunity to do in school or at home, or that you foster this and it grows so big. And that's such a great story.
Yeah, that's true.
Wow.
True. So it's those things. It's things that you really can help a child determine what they want to do. You know, at that age-old question, what do you want to be when you grow up? Like after school programs is really where a lot of that comes from. And if you haven't listened to some of the great speakers that speak, they talk about the impact of the Boys and Girls Club on their life, or, you know, the YMCA, or, you know, whatever after school program they went to. A lot of sports people will talk about athletes, talk about how they started playing basketball at the Boys and Girls Club, or, you know, so if we foster where these kids like that spark happens, and we cultivate it. We cultivate it.
Oh, yes. You're so right. It's heartwarming hearing the success stories. Children in our before and after school programs, they should really be able to try new things and attempt new skills that they might not have the opportunity to do elsewhere. I remember one of my first times in the school I run now, I was doing a supervisor role and a before and after school role, and I was able to get a small engine from a farmer, and I brought it in for the one day, and the kids got to take it apart and they could do whatever they wanted to. Obviously, we had like the safety goggles and stuff. There was rules around it that they made, but it's just that they would never have the opportunity to take apart an engine before. And I was like, why not? Like, they love getting messy. They love working with their hands. They should be able to try these things. We talked a little bit about advocacy, but what steps can be taken to better recognize and support after-school professionals, in your opinion? And are there any current initiatives or movements aimed at addressing these disparities?
Okay. Any step. Any one step. Pick any one step that you feel comfortable with and do it, right? And if there's nothing you feel comfortable with, get outside of your comfort zone and try the least restrictive, easiest thing to do. I can't really say that there's any initiatives per se. Here, I don't know if there is where you are. There's not really a lot. I will say, though, I find it interesting that the not real teachers during the pandemic turned their entire after-school programs into makeshift schools.
Yes.
Right? So I want to say that to all of you out there who worked during the pandemic and did distance learning at your programs and stepped up when traditional schools were not able to open, thank you. I want to say that.
I have to echo that. There are so many people, thank you. There's so many people really flipped on a dime on how they executed their programs and just became the be all and end all for educators and for those family support. And they definitely don't have the recognition that they deserve.
I mean, you never saw that story anywhere in the pandemic. All you heard was schools were closed, kids had a DGL. There was no conversation. There was no big news press release about the impact that had and the role that after-school programs played in stepping up for families so they could continue to work. Nope. So I guess I would say, back to your question, that could have been a place to start. Pay attention to what's going on in the industry right now, and then see what you can do blog about it, write a letter to your local newspaper about it, whatever it is that you can do to showcase, because they're not really coming and saying, hey, they're not knocking on your door and saying, Jamie, tell me the great things that are going on in your program. But I promise you, if one of your teachers gave a kid melatonin, you would be on the news.
Oh, yes.
Right? Of course. So the only thing that they show on the news is these horror stories. And of course, obviously those are important. We all need to be transparent in our industry. But at the same time, should we also be sharing the successes of what's going on here?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Looking ahead, what changes would you like to see in the future regarding the support and recognition of after-school programs?
I would like it to happen.
Yes.
I would like it to happen.
Yeah.
So, maybe it comes to, we all talk about it. That's the great thing about podcasters and bloggers and vloggers and social media influencers. If you have a following of, I don't even care. It doesn't matter. Micro influencer, mega influencer. If you're in this space in education, because we do need to stick together, you should be talking about all of the different types of educators. Right. And so I know that goes against everything they tell us, because they love to divide and conquer people. So, they'll tell you, even with you, they tell you to niche it down, only talk about one thing. And this is the, really fine tune it. Okay, that's great. You can be a specialist in an area. But at the same time, I have as much respect for a family child care provider, a center owner, school teacher, an after-school person, teacher. I have the same respect for all of them. I have respect for the janitor. I respect for the landscape. Can't run our schools without them. They're an integral part of health and safety of our schools. Right? So I think we all should be on our platform supporting each other. I think that's the important thing. And we all have a circle of influence. Some of us bigger than others. And if you have a big platform, shame on you if you're not supporting all. Shame on you. I'm going to say that.
Yeah, absolutely. And how can our listeners become involved in advocating for these changes? So number one is using your platforms to advocate for education, obviously. What else do you think?
Become part of a membership group that works on advocacy, because that'll make it easier for you. They will let you know what initiatives are coming out, when you can go, what the dates are. We're lucky here in Rhode Island. We have our state affiliate for NACE, and so they let us know. They say they'll write the letter for you and say, here's the legislator in your area. Put your name on it and send it, right? So just start somewhere. That's my best advice. Go online, because obviously we could be having listeners anywhere in the world, right? So find who makes the decisions, who is leading the charge, and connect with them. That would be the best advice, because my answer is going to be different than yours, because we're in different countries. But yeah, I would say find out in your country who makes the decisions and how you can get involved. You can start small, or if you're like me and Jamie, rip the Band-Aid off and rah!
Absolutely. Where's the tree to tie us to? I will be there. I'm just kidding. For those of you listening in Ontario, it's the AECEO is the big one for us. And they do the exact same thing, Erica. They write the letters. They tell you who you're sending these letters to. All you have to do is sign your name.
Jamie, have they been on your show?
They have not yet, no.
Get them on your show. Tell them what you're trying to do. Trying to say, hey, I want to really help get the after-school folks energized.
Great idea.
Motivated to help. But a lot of people don't know where to start. So if that's their specialty and that's what they do and that's what they're here for, it should be very, very easy for them to get on the show and give step-by-step directions for your listeners.
Great idea. Thanks, Erica. Is there any resources that you want our listeners to know that in Rhode Island or the USA that we haven't talked about for educators?
No, because there's so many, I couldn't list them all. What I would say, is go onto Google, type in the things that matter to you, Maybe because it could be not every after school. See, we even lumping our after school folks together. Some of our after school folks might be really into STEM. Others might be really into, something else. So what matters the most to you, and connect with those agencies, right? And the same thing going back to your question, like way at the beginning about funding and stuff like that. So if you're in STEM, there's lots of money available for STEM, not only through the public sectors, but also the private sectors. Like I know Lego does a whole lot around Lego clubs and STEM initiatives, right? See what they have available for after school programs, for grants. It might even not be money. It might be materials. Maybe they ship you, 18 boxes of Legos, whatever it is. Find the things that matter the most to you, your kids, your staff, and then go from there. That's my best advice.
Amazing. Thank you, Erica. Erica, again, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate all the work you do for childcare sector and the professional development. How can the listeners find you?
We are on all the major listening platforms, Apple, Spotify, all the places. It's the Childcare Director's Chair podcast. We also have a YouTube channel, same name. And on Instagram, please give me some Instagram love, because I'm not really that great with the social media things. I'm too busy, advocating in real life, but it is CCDC podcast, which is just abbreviated for Child Care Director's Chair podcast. So yeah, come find me. And I was thinking about doing some lives pretty soon too. So yeah, I think that might be fun. Yeah, that might be fun. So I'll be posting that up on my IG channel pretty soon, but I think we'll be doing some lives. I love talking to people. Obviously, Jamie, it's hard to shut me up. Hard to shut me up.
And your energy is so contagious. So people, you need to go listen. If you have not listened, do yourself a favor. Leave here all excited and then go listen. Thank you so much, Erica.
Thank you. Have a great day, guys.
Bye, everyone.